Hello and welcome to the Citrus County Community Action Meeting. And if you're viewing us from home, thank you for viewing us. I'm sorry you weren't able to get here, but we do have people outside. But we want you to know that you can follow us on YouTube, and you can go there with NEWCWOW/A/V, and you can pick us up streaming live, okay? Or you can go to Doug Alexander Facebook and get that live. Listen, once again, good evening, and we welcome everybody today, June the 2nd, to Citrus County, and this meeting is very important to us. And first, let us just say to our prayers and deepest sympathy to George Floyd family. Much love and respect for that. And first, I'd like to just thank all the panelists of guests. Thank you, gentlemen, and for coming and being with us and sharing your thoughts and everything. So we'll be introducing you here in a minute, okay? I would also like to thank everybody in here. Thank you so much. Now, I want to tell you, it's a little house rules. This is not a political stage. This is not a forum. This is an action group to try to make something happen. It will be a dissatisfaction to the family if we go into something like that, okay? So please honor that. Please respect that. So if you didn't get a piece of paper outside, you can also get something and pass on. Now, we're here to make things happen. We're going to hear the voices in the community, people that can make these things happen. You have some incredible panelists of people here, and they're in some key positions, key places to make things happen. That's what we want. We know that there's some scheduled protests. We don't have a problem with people protesting. I can tell you personally, I don't protest. That's why I'm doing this. I'm doing my part. This is my position here, is to bring people together. I believe this is my position. So God bless whoever want to protest. I don't have a problem with people protesting. My problem is when you destroy people's property and then you join in and you be a part of that. So I cannot be something that's destroying people's property. I can tell you that right now. We'll discuss that, I'm sure, later. But I can just tell you, I know what's going on around the country. You know what's going on. That's not Citrus County. Citrus County, I'm born and raised here. I was born and raised here. Born and raised here. Served my country, served the sheriff department. Glad to be a citizen here. I feel it my right and my duty to come back and to address you and to make sure that we all are safe and that we all are secure and that we have a dialogue. This is what this is about, having a dialogue, something that come together, how we can do that. How do you do that? Well, by bringing some of the greatest influences in the county, the leaders here, and making sure that they can tell us how they plan to help us, okay? That's important. That's why we do what we do. I want to tell you, I'm proud to be a native for Citrus County here today, so that's a good thing. There will not be any bashing here. We're not going to bash people here. We're not going to yell out. If you yell out, you start hollering things, I'm telling you, you will be asked to leave, okay? Just simple as that. We have rules here. We're trying to make something happen. It's not fair for Mr. George family if we come in here and just blot out and just get out of chaos. That's not fair for these gentlemen. It's not fair for me. Remember, this is not a ballroom. This is a church. It's a sanctuary, and I want you to honor it. I want you to honor that. And that leads me by saying this. I want to bring and start it right now with prayer. I think we need to start with prayer. I've asked Pastor Ottis if you would come and lead us in prayer, and I hope you are a Christian. If not, then you still can join us in prayer. Pastor Ottis, would you bless us?
I just want to start tonight by saying to all of our leaders here in our community, as a pastor and a shepherd in this community, there are people who are praying and even right now fasting, believing God for the best in this community. We believe that Citrus County will continue to shine as a beacon of hope and life and will lead not only our state but in the nation as long as we reach out in love and life that comes through Christ. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we come here in this moment, God, greatly grieved by what happened, Lord, just a few short days ago to this man, George. And God, we, Lord, cry out to you because your word tells us if we would humble ourselves, and pray, seek your face and turn from our wicked ways, then you would hear from heaven. You would forgive our sins and you would heal our land. Lord, this is what we desire. So here we are as a faith community, as brothers and sisters, Lord, as human beings, crying out for help from heaven. Lord, we ask that tonight wisdom would be heard, a wisdom that supersedes our education. It supersedes our experience. God, we ask for the unseen leadership of the Holy Spirit in this place. And we ask for your ever evident hand to rest upon the pastors, shepherds, and civic leaders in this community. Lord, we thank you for Citrus County. We thank you for her leaders. And we thank you for your grace that is resting upon us through Christ. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Pastor Ottis. Thank you very much. Today, to give us our mission, while we're here, what is our purpose? Our purpose and mission statement here today, this meeting, is Miss Sheila Jordan, the Executive Director for PACE Center for Girls in Citrus County. Miss Sheila.
Across the United States, we are constantly bombarded with the news reports and images of excessive violence resulting in the deaths of people of color, especially black men, at a traffic stop, going for a jog, legally carrying a weapon, or most recently, the images of an unresisting George Floyd pinned under the knee of a police officer until he lay lifeless. We, Citrus County, are part of America. We can't celebrate its benefits without owning the responsibility for fixing its brokenness. Tonight, as our country stands fractured and shaken, we in Citrus County have an opportunity to deliberately and immediately begin to be and do things differently. Good evening. My name is Sheila Ann Jordan. I serve as the Executive Director of PACE Center for Girls, Citrus. We have been invited tonight to begin a dialogue between the leaders and citizens of Citrus that will result in actionable steps that move us forward toward a Citrus County where a citizen's race neither determines if he will be safe in the hands of police, nor if she will fairly receive the full benefit of citizenship. Our host is a community leader who is known as a convener of people and resources for good causes. He is a decorated Army veteran, retired deputy sheriff, and a well-respected and loved pastor. Please, let's in advance thank and show our gratitude for our host this evening, Dr. Douglas Alexander.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you. Thank you. And thank everybody, really, thank you very much. And we're just grateful to be here and do what we can do. So we're grateful. My heart hurts as a black man, as a person, as an ex-deputy sheriff, and have been in law enforcement all my life. I want to tell you, it's tough times, but I want to tell you, everybody that you see that's in the uniform don't represent what has taken place. That has not been my heart, and I'm sure that's not the heart of those that are in here today. I want to do this. I want to introduce our panel of guests, and we do have a law in Citrus County and Florida. It's called the Sunshine Law. The Sunshine Law means that you have several county commissioners in here today. So what's going to take place is that when one county commissioner speaks, the other one have to leave the room in a discussion. So what's going to happen at the end? We tried to let them listen to everything, and at the end, what's going to happen is Commissioner Kinnard, he'll be speaking, and then after that, then Brian Coleman, which is the chairman of the county commission here in Citrus County, he'll be the last one, but they cannot be in the same room deliberating at the same time, okay? Everybody okay with that? Okay, so our panel of guests tonight is Sheriff for Citrus County, Sheriff Mike Pendergrass. Sheriff. Representing the Citrus County School Board, Sam had a tooth pull. So Thomas Kennedy, School Board Member Chairman, is here tonight. Thomas Kennedy, thank you. Representing the black community on the west side, and Bishop Al Hopkins, a well-respected bishop, Kingdom Empowerment Church. Commissioner, Commissioner Brian Coleman. Represent Crystal River, that side of the county. Of course, we have Commissioner, he used to be a commissioner, Mayor of Crystal River, Joe Meek. This guy here sold my daughter the first car, buy here, pay here. He's an incredible guy, good friend of mine, and he's been also a county commissioner. Mr. Josh Wooten, representing Citrus County Chamber. Thank you so much for being here, sir. Also in the audience today, Dr. and Commissioner Kinnard. Would you please stand? Thank you, sir. He'll be addressing you later. Also, Rotary International is here. And Rotary International, is you going to do it, Mr. Ninos, or who? You or John? John, one of y'all got to stand now. Rotary International.
He's got the gloves.
John?
I'll stand.
All right, thank you. The mayor of Inverness, who is a very, very good friend, and he would have been here, but he's on vacation when all this took place. He's been gone a while, and his represent him tonight is Mr. Ken Inkel. Ken, where are you, buddy? Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank all of you. Any other pastors? Pastor Sutton is here. Pastor Sutton, would you please stand? If it's okay, can I have all the pastors, would you, if you're a pastor, would you please stand tonight? Pastor Ottis? Yes, sir. Pastor Faith Jackson, born and raised here. Thank you, Apostle Jackson. Pastor Yvonne, Pastor Sandrew, Pastor Larry. And your name, sir? Hey, Dave, I see you back there. I'm sorry, Bubba. And you know, I talk country, so sorry about that, Bubba. Okay. But thank you guys so much, and thank you for showing up tonight. Also, thank you tonight for the Citrus County Sheriff Department. Thank you guys for being here. Florida Highway Patrol is here tonight. Thank you guys for being here. And thank you, everybody that showed up that has some concern. Give yourself a hand. Thank you. Well, tonight we'd like to proceed and get started tonight. And we know that this is a tough time. Now, as I said earlier, many of you have watched Facebook. You know what's going on. You know that there will be some protests that's going to take place. Our thing is that we've come together and asked these leaders, how can we have a dialogue? We join together, how we make something happen in Citrus County, keep our residents safe, keep our streets safe, and actually keep the protesters safe as well, okay? That's what we want. So tonight, I don't want Brian to start, but I want to start with Bishop Al Hopkins. Al, if you don't mind, if you can maybe address some of your concerns that you may have concerning.
Thank you, Pastor. It's a mixed feeling being here. It's good, and then it's painful at the same time. I think that this is a start. This is a start of years and years of pain that have existed, not only in our county, but I think throughout our nation. And one of the things that I think has caused it to perpetuate itself for so long is the fact that we haven't done this enough, that we have not come together. The Bible says, come, let us reason together. And I believe specifically that many times some of the greatest things in life can be accomplished through just reasoning, through understanding one another, to understanding one another's position. I am a direct product of Citrus County. I was born and raised in Crystal River, the very place that many of you call Copeland Park. We really refer to it as Knights Edition, is my home. I was raised right there in that little community. And to this day, my mom's house still exists in that community. I am 48 years old today. I left Crystal River. I served in the armed forces. I'm a veteran of Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm. I also served in law enforcement. I served for the Department of Corrections for years. I have seen both sides of this fence. And this is a tale that has been told over and over and over again. In America, the killings, and I would say the direct confrontation of black men with law enforcement happens all the time. It happens, I would say, on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes nothing comes out of it. The result is good. Many times it happens the way that it's supposed to happen. But anytime it happens the way that it happened in the life of George Floyd, with his life ending there on a street corner, and we seeing his life literally being choked from his body under the knee of a law enforcement officer, it brings up a lot of old wounds. It brings up old wounds, not only of police brutality, but also the wounds which we all bear because of the history of this country, because of the fact that over 400 years of subjugation of our ancestors and some of the things that we have seen, it has become a plight that we have seen all too many times. I personally believe that the killings of black men at the hands of police shouldn't be our normal in America anymore. I think that there are times and there are incidents when black males come in contact with police officers, and I think there are times where there's a whole lot done to try to save their lives, where there's not an ending like it was in the life of Mr. Floyd. But many times what brings these things home is because it happens so often. From Philandro Castile to Trayvon Martin, though he was not killed by a law enforcement officer, to Michael Brown, even now to George Floyd, over and over again. And even here in our own county, in Citrus County, it's happened. Many years ago, when I was a high schooler, a young man by the name of Jerome Bunch, his life was taken right there in Crystal River at the ABC, where a gun was put to his head at point blank range. He was killed. He was shot in his head because of an interaction between law enforcement. It was prosecuted, it went to courts, and definitely the officer was found not guilty based on the use of force matrix that was used. But nevertheless, anytime lives are taken, anytime someone has to die at the hands of law enforcement, not only is the community hurt, but also law enforcement bears a big hurt. I understand that not only that, but as we go through all of these names, one of the things that we have to almost do, all of us as parents, I myself today, I have sons. I am a pastor in the community. I have cousins. I have friends. It is normal and almost a must for every mother or every father that is raising a black male to have a conversation with them about race in America. It is a norm. If the conversation is not had, then you are raising them in an ill-equipped environment, not realizing that one day they very well may come in contact with law enforcement. And if they are not made, and if the right moves are not made, if the right statements are not made, many times the incident can come out the wrong way. What hurts most assuredly is not just the death of Mr. Floyd. What really hurts and what brings this home so close to us as African Americans is from the highest office in our land down to our city officials, down to everyone that perhaps may be here. What hurts the most is when there is not adequate remorse stated to the people who are affected the most by these incidents. Now that in itself is rough by itself. The next thing that makes it very rough is that we see also that not only that, but our peers of the opposite race, meaning white males, have similar run-in with law enforcement and are almost never killed. And I would say tonight that that's not a coincidence. The next thing that makes it even tougher to swallow, that the same justice system that prosecutes African American males to the fullest, many of our African American males, by the time that they leave high school, if they are not going to the armed forces or going to a job or going to college, it is almost a absolute a guarantee that they're going to end up in the hands of law enforcement, especially in Citrus County. One of the reasons is because the lack of jobs here, the lack of things that young African Americans can do who have had stints with the penal system. And anytime that occurs, when they are prosecuted to the fullest, the same justice system that prosecutes them allows the law enforcement officers who kill them to go free. That, my friends and neighbors, is a tough pill to swallow. I am not here as a protester. I am not here. I do not sanction the burning of our buildings. I love this country. I have fought for this country. I have maladies in my body because of the war that I fought in this country. And I'm here to tell you all I believe that most African American males are looking for is equal justice in the sight of the law.
Yeah. Thank you.
Let me just say one thing. One more statement in my closing. In our nation, at our Supreme Court, and even also at some of our courthouses abroad in some of this state, we have a symbol of justice called Lady Justice. On Lady Justice, a blindfolded woman carries a sword and a set of scales. It is a common symbol of our justice system in a courthouse. She symbolizes fair and equal administration of the law without corruption, favor, greed, and prejudice. As I close my statement today, we as Americans have great work to do to ensure that Lady Justice remain the symbol of our American justice system, and that no person based on their creed, their color, or any type of prejudice that may bear can come into a courtroom or come in contact with the law and have the same equal fair treatment.
Pastor Al. Bishop L is speaking truth, and that's what happened with truth. You speak the truth, and he's saying it like it is as a black man, so you need to hear that. If you're here today, you need to hear that from his heart and see what he's sharing. It would be a disgrace if we don't tell you how we feel and share our heart with you today. That's why it's important. School is important, teaching, training. My thing is, where do we start? You start at home, yes, train them at home, but then when they leave home, are they going to get it when they leave home? What's the next step? So Thomas, Sam not here, so you're in the hot seat, brother. You got to tell me what you guys are doing and how you guys plan to help Citrus County, how you plan to, educate, train, and equip. Tell me what you guys thinking from Citrus County, your school.
Well, first of all, Reverend, thank you for doing this. This is a tremendous forum for all of us. You are somebody we turn to. Unfortunately, we sometimes turn to you in rough times, which is what we're in right now. But I think we also turn to you in praise in other times, and so we are grateful for this as a community. And Reverend, thank you for being very frank with us, because it's hard to hear sometimes. And I hope we recognize that this is hard to hear. Our country's going through some rough times, and we got to be honest about that. I still have a great deal of faith in our country, but I have a lot of faith in Citrus County. We are a different world here, and we have different challenges. But there isn't much that I don't think collectively we can't do together. And, we have some praises, and I come from education. So we can't, we got to sandwich some rough things with also starting out with some positives. We have Florida's, not Citrus County, but Florida's Support Person of the Year that came out of Citrus County. An African-American woman, as you know, Athena Council has been, she is not just a an example of Citrus County, but she is now an example to the entire state of Florida. She is also a mentor to many of our kids. She is a mentor to many of our minority and our diversity kids. Someone I will tell you that if you don't have a chance to meet, stop by Crystal River High School, ask to talk to Senior Chief with our JORTC program. You may find him standing over a couple of young men, telling them what they need to do and how they need to treat their mamas better and how they need to love their mamas. Maurice Perrine is Senior Chief, and we are blessed in this community to have him. And he is a mentor to our young men and women. But you know, the problem really that we have in Citrus County, we don't have enough of them. And I know, Reverend, you know that. We have less than 20 minority African-American teachers in our school system. We have over 900 teachers in Citrus County school system. Now, I'll tell you, I'm proud that annually we go to African-American colleges, we go to FAMU to recruit, but we need help. We need community to say, come here. Be mentors, be teachers, be leaders in our community. We got to start there because I tell you, our kids need them. We have some great statistics. We are making tremendous progress with our minority students, but we need to do a lot more.
You guys, the school, are you in your classes? I don't know what age group you start, but are there any race relations classes or anything of that nature that's starting? And if so, what age group are you guys starting it from?
You find that, I think that more than simply just a diversity embracing, it has been a humanity embracing. And I think that while we do start that at a young age, where you see that probably the strongest is when we get to middle school. Our health classes and our emotional classes as they get into the middle school and high school years, where obviously children are, one, recognizing themselves more. They're recognizing each other more in different ways. They're even recognizing themselves, whether they're male, female. All of those pieces start at that point. Can we do more? We absolutely, I think, can we do more. Can we start younger? I think we can. And I think that we definitely need to work together to develop that.
We do have some questions. If you have some question, you want to get some question addressed, make sure we'll be listening to some of those questions and take care of them. Am I good, Tom? Okay. Check 1, 2. Okay. Anyway, I can talk now. You got that right, Praise. But please drop your questions back there. I want you to hear the heart from some of our black leaders and, you know, what they're thinking. So Pastor Faith Jackson, if you could address this, Faith, this one right here, this microphone right here, sir, if you can come and address this one, Pastor, right here. Just somehow what you feel that the situation is, Pastor.
Oh, so good. I didn't know what you call it. Yes, I was born and raised here over 50 years. I'm 52 years old and moved out of this county, but I'm still love Citrus County here. And I myself, like my fellow co-worker here in the ministry, feel the same way. As some of the things that we're seeing is the inequality, and we just want to see it brought together. What I would like to see is we come together more. The white, the blacks, we're coming together, fellowshipping, seeing great things done here. Some other things that we have sought to see is coming here tonight. I just wanted to see what was going to be said, because as I pastor in Brooksville, Florida, and we're going to be having a meeting like this on tomorrow, and so we just wanted to get some of the ideas that were things that were being said so that we can take it back to them tomorrow in the same type of form here. And so as hearing, as I look back, some things that have happened and that have hurt us, one thing for my own self is when I walk, into a room, sometimes we seeing and being perceived differently, not understanding. So I think there needs to be a greater understanding of from both sides. If African Americans can understand Caucasian, we understand how we're seeing it, because sometimes I think there's a misconception of some of how some of the African Americans portray coming across. So we just want to be able to get a good understanding so that we can begin to build and have healing here in the county.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Pastor Sutton, you're a pastor in Crystal River. Would you please address us and before we go to our panel?
Good evening, everybody. This is an action meeting, and so I'm not going to give a speech, but we need to take action. I'll address the clergy first. We've been too silent. Instead of holding up our lights as the purveyors of the gospel, we've sat back while evil did prosper. And the evil that we've been seeing goes strictly against the word, and yet we still kept silent. Revelation 7:9 says that after that judgment, when all is put together, when all is fulfilled, the people of every nation, every tongue, and every kindred, and every tribe is going to be gathered around the throne, praising God. But we as clergy haven't been giving people that message. We need to do better.
Do you feel it's just blacks, or do you feel the white community clergy need to work?
Clergy.
Okay.
I'm not because there's no color in the Bible.
Right.
There wasn't any in the beginning, and Revelation tells us there won't be any in the end. We need to start preaching the gospel.
Right.
There's no black gospel. There's no white gospel.
Right.
There's simply the gospel.
Right.
We have been remiss because one of the most segregated times in America is not when males meet the police. It's when we go to church. So we as clergy need to step up our game before we talk about how the world needs to change, because we clergy, we're supposed to be the salt of the earth. So we need to take action. Not black, not white, clergy, men of God, women of God, children of God. We need to start being what we're supposed to be rather than hiding behind church. As you've done to the least of these, you've done to me. That ought to be common in all of our messages.
Right.
A new commandment I give you, that you love one another. As I have loved you, love one another. We've fallen short because sometimes we preach separation. We don't love as we ought to, so I'm starting with clergy action. This is a community action meeting, so the community clergy, we need to take action to line up with who we're supposed to be.
Thank you.
As far as the community, as far as the impetus for this meeting, action. Yes, there have been things done in the past. I'm 66. From the time I was a child, 50s, 60s, 70s, I've seen it. I've experienced it. Been through 2 generations of Watts riots in California. And it all started the same way with the death of someone under very questionable circumstances. This is not a new problem. But community action for Sheriff Pendergrass. If we could commit today to three things, three simple things. Just three simple things. If we can commit to banning neck and choke restraints on any person that comes into interaction with the law enforcement community. That's number one. Number two, get away from the adversarial relationship that police have in the community.
Do you feel that we have a problem with the police in this community?
I run into a few different types of officers in Citrus County. I run into polite officers, and then I've run into ones that aren't too polite. And they look at their role as not as a public servant, but sometimes as a conqueror. And it's their job to impose.
Okay. What's your third point, then,
And the third point is this. There's a second part to that. And I asked Sheriff Dawsey when I first became pastor at Mount Olive to do this. For those deputies of faith, not command them, but ask them, encourage them to fellowship with us, to get to see us not as suspects or skanks or scales or perpetrators or suspects, but to get to see us as people who have doubts and dreams, who have aspirations and ambitions, who want the best for our kids like you want the best for your kids, who don't want my grandkids growing up in my world. And the third thing is this. If we're going to take action, if you really want to keep the fires from popping up, announce some training and policy changes that even though they've happened in the past, even though they were taken for granted, even though that's the way we did business as usual, it's not like that anymore. You'll do more just from those three things that don't cost any money.
Okay, thank
To
you.
get rid of the tension, the mistrust, even the confrontational spirit that exists between the black community and the sheriff office.
So you feel there's a problem?
Yes, I know. I don't feel there's a problem.
Who's saying yes?
I know there's a problem. I know there's a problem.
Okay.
And I have to say this. When you have someone running for sheriff who says something like, oh, well, animals are going to be animals.
Pastor, like I said.
No. I'm
I
not
don't
bashing.
wanna
I'm not trying to politicize, but I'm talking about a mindset. I'm talking about sometimes it's not even recognized as a mindset. That's where the training and everything comes in. Action.
Right.
So that those who have that mindset end up getting weeded out. And the 98% of the cops don't get painted with the same brush as the 2%.
Okay.
Action.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Pastor. Well, Sheriff, since we're on that, I'm going to go ahead and let you address it, Sheriff. I know you got some things to do, but I mean, it's, let's address some of those issues and see where we can come with that, okay?
Can you hear me? So, a couple comments, and let me start out and preface my remarks by, I think it was a beautiful thing that you said, that there's no color in the Bible. And I've been a student of the Bible all of my life, growing up right here in Florida, and living all over the world and serving my country while I was on active duty as an American soldier. And I served along with Pastor Doug in some of the most inhospitable places on God's earth, and came back home. And now I serve as your sheriff. And one of the lessons I learned from the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., because I was a student of American history as I was growing up, and I experienced it growing up right here in Florida, is that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And it takes a community to unify for a common purpose to overcome challenges. And what we saw happen 8 days ago today is an unconscionable act by folks that are not adhering to the oath of office that they took to be sworn law enforcement officers. They disobeyed their training. They disobeyed their agency policies. And what's more unconscionable and contemptible is that 3 other sworn law enforcement officers were on the scene and failed to act and do the right thing and save that man's life. And 8 minutes later, that man lay dead on the street in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and died because of inaction by law enforcement officers. And I want to go back to you and talk to you about something. We don't teach chokeholds in the Citrus County Sheriff's Office. It's contrary to the policy and the training. And in fact, we've only had one deputy since I was sworn in as the sheriff of Citrus County employ a chokehold contrary to his training. And that deputy no longer works for the Citrus County Sheriff's Office. And he did not believe that what he did was wrong, but it was contrary to policy, and he fought it tooth and nail, and now he's employed elsewhere outside of this county. We very emphatically train on use of force policy, and we have revisited, although we still haven't got to everybody in the agency because we work rotating shifts and we're 24/7, but we have revisited what happened up in Minneapolis, and we also revisited what happened in Atlanta, Georgia, where 2 college students were tased and very aggressively handled by 2 sworn law enforcement officers. And so let me go back to something that's at our very core as members of the Citrus County Sheriff's Office. We have a mission, and that mission is about delivering excellence in public safety 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to the citizens of our community. And if you can't embrace that mission and live up to the core values of integrity, and integrity not only when you're surrounded by your peers or your superiors, but integrity when no one else is looking. Selfless service, that's you place service to the community above your individual desires and your selfish purposes in life, to serve the community and adhere to the oath that you take. And then, of course, loyalty above all. Loyalty to the oath, loyalty to the community, loyalty to the Constitution of the state and of our nation, and adherence to that. And those are tough, demanding standards. And actions speak louder than words. So let me summarize something for you about the actions that we take. Last year, we responded to over 175,000 calls for service that came in through our 911 center in Citrus County. 175,000. And less than 0.1% of those calls for service had a sworn law enforcement officer use force. It could have been saying that they were going to pull their taser out and using it, deploying the taser, displaying a weapon, or using deadly force to stop an imminent threat that was about to engage a citizen or engage one of our deputy sheriffs and cause serious bodily injury or death. That's an amazing statistic, and our numbers are going down every year over the past 3 years. And in fact, right now, we're only 5 months into the year, and we're trending down for a 10% decrease in use of force incidents from what we saw just 1 year ago. And that's because we train hard, because we talk about it, and we know that we're better than those people in Minnesota, and we're better than those people in Atlanta, and we strive every day to meet your expectations as a community and honor the oath that we swore to God that we would uphold to protect every citizen. And we don't see color. We see people that sometimes violate their county's ordinances, the state's laws, or U.S. laws, and we respond accordingly. And we do our level best. And as Colin Powell said many years ago, there are no perfect people in this world. There are only perfect intentions. And when our intentions are less than perfect, we retrain and we readdress and we make corrective actions. There are some mistakes that people can make, and you can underwrite those honest mistakes. There are other mistakes that cannot be underwritten because they tear apart the very fiber of our community, and they tear apart what it means to be a professional for this profession, where each and every day when we walk out the door and we cross the threshold to go to work, and we do something called going 10-8, where we're in service, and Pastor Doug, I know you know what that means. We don't know what the first call is going to bring to us or the last call before we get home and get off a shift is going to bring to us. But we take our oath of office very seriously, and we commit ourselves to serving our community. And what Dr. Martin Luther King taught many years ago, and I saw as a young boy growing up, and spending a lot of my time in my youth right here in Citrus County on the Withlacoochee River, Lake Salapopka, and out there on Kings Bay with my family, was that there are solutions to every challenge that lie within the hands of people who care passionately and deeply about their community. And if we work together, we can solve any problem. And we need to work together as a community because we've got a long ways to go. We have a 20% unemployment rate in our community right now. And if we don't fix that, we can't fix the other things that are out there. And there are some deep wounds for that employment stuff in our community that have to be addressed, and we've got to work together. We've got 40 million Americans plus in our nation right now that are unemployed. We haven't seen that since the Great Depression. And we cannot allow other things to get out there. But make no mistake about it. We are going to serve, and we are going to protect every citizen, and we're going to do our level best to meet your expectations every time we go out and we get a call and we respond. And if there are shortcomings out there, we're going to redress them, and we're going to move folks around and take care of those. And if someone doesn't need to be part of this profession, they can go find a job somewhere else because we don't want them here. We would rather be a small, well-trained, well-disciplined organization that serves this community and does our level-headed best, regardless of the color of a person's skin or what kind of car they drive or where they live in our community. That doesn't matter. It's to serve the community, placing that service above ourselves. God bless you, Doug, for doing this. We really appreciate you.
Listen, hold up, Pastor. Sheriff, just wait, Pastor. So just address to them that, based on what has happened, have your deputies been counseled and talked to about, as far as protesting? I've been approached with there are going to be two protesting. They're going to be marching. There's two that I've been approached to be a part of. Now, my question to you, will your deputies allow that to happen, and have you addressed that with them?
So we have been made aware of a potential protest on Friday and another one on Sunday. And as of my coming in this door about 50 minutes ago, I don't believe either one of those events had been properly permitted through the respective cities where they were planning on having those events. And the reason for that is to protect the citizens, but also to ensure that the other citizens' rights are not infringed upon by folks who would want to peacefully protest. So there's a process to be worked for any of those, and we want to be respectful of the other 150,000 people who call Citrus County home, and their rights not being trampled upon by folks who want to protest nonviolently and to really respect the honor and memory of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So as far as talking to the deputies, they are all aware about what we have gathered information about thus far, and we're waiting to see through talking to the folks that have pushed some information out on social media to find out exactly what their plans are. As of about 3:30 this afternoon, the protest for Inverness was reported to be less than 30 folks, which does not require a permit. And it's going to be from 2 o'clock, from noon until 2:30 on Friday afternoon. And then the one on Sunday, we don't have all the details, but one of our captains did talk to somebody about it this afternoon, and we don't have all the details for it, but I believe it's set to commence somewhere in Crystal River at 2 p.m.
Okay, then Ken, from the city of Inverness, we just need to know, legal, getting a permit to go to have a permit, is that something that you guys normally do? Is that regular business, or you don't have a problem with protesting, it's just permitting?
I'm not sure exactly about the permitting process. It goes to the sheriff, so if they would have to have a permit, but we support any type of protest as long as it's safe, it doesn't injure anybody, it doesn't inhibit the roadways. They can get out and protest all they want because everybody has that right to speak. But we respect everybody. God made us all one person, one family, no matter what color we are, and we respect that. I think the key to the thing is we need to respect each other in everything and listen to each other. Sometimes we run our mouth, but we don't listen with our ears. And I think that's the key thing is we need to sit in like this dialogue that you brought together. You and I have known each other for many years, and I had red hair when I first met him. But God's been good to our community. Every one of you that are here, you're part of our community. You may not live in Inverness, but you're part of our community. We're all brothers and sisters in God's eyes, and that's what I feel. We just need to love one another, respect each other, and move forward in love.
Thank you, Ken. Well, Joe, you from Crystal River. You heard the sheriff say something may, jump off in Crystal River. You're part of your west side, and we are east side here. So what's your view on it? And do you guys have a policy like Inverness has? And, I don't have a problem with people, marching. I'll be honest with you. They have a right. People died for that, to be able to do that. So, it's just peaceful is what I'm concerned about.
Absolutely. First of all, with regards to that, it's in our Constitution. It's very clear. The First Amendment clearly states the right of people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. So it is absolutely folks' right, and the city of Crystal River, and I think this community, will always stand in protection of folks' constitutional rights. And so we're all for it. From my understanding, as the sheriff said, an individual did come forward to the city and I think met with Captain of West Side with sheriffs, and I'm not sure the specifics of it right now other than to say that the plan was 2 or 2:30 on Sunday, I've been told, a peaceful march, and so we're great with that. As far as with regards to permitting or anything like that, I completely agree with what you're saying. Folks have a constitutional right that's spelled out very clearly to be able to do that. So as long as it's peaceful, I think we're all for it.
Okay. So most of you know, we don't have a problem with you, he's saying, that you can protest and you can march. Now, you've watched TV and you've seen on TV, there's been a lot of looting and different things. That's something that we don't want to happen, okay? That's something that cannot be tolerated. When you do that, then you cause problem for yourselves and law enforcement, and it's a crime. So you heard what both Inverness is supposed to be planning something Friday, and then Crystal River. But, so I know a lot of people have come to me and asked me about it. I'm just telling you my views on it, that, this is my view. This is what I do. This is what I think, a dialogue about it and bringing the community together. A lot of things are going to happen. Miss Sheila, do you have any questions? Can you address some of those questions that some of you have asked before I talk? I have a panel up here, and I have some guys here that we're going to talk to.
Good evening again. We do have several questions that have come from the audience. I've tried to group them together, so I'll try to summarize. We have a couple questions that have asked what specific recruitment strategies have the departments been using to recruit minorities into the school districts and also into the sheriff's department?
Address it, Tom.
Yeah, and we do a couple things. COVID has obviously impacted some things this year. But aside from this year, one of the things that we do is, and I apologize, I tried to have my notes here. There's usually 3 venues annually that we visit, that we go to recruiting, that we found to be successful. We do this across the country in order to recruit teachers. As you well know, particularly with teachers, we're challenged to get teachers across the nation to fill our spots. So it's even sometimes more challenging to find minority teachers, especially to come into some of your rural communities. I was blessed to find my wife here, but it's a very hard thing if you're a single person and you want to come to a place here. So if you know any single people that are in education, please match them up. It really is good for us. We go to Daytona Beach to Cookman College, and we actually do a recruitment there. We go to FAMU and we do a recruitment. We also work with the Florida Foundation of Minority Teachers, which works with universities and colleges across the state to recruit minorities, to fund teachers to go into, to become teachers, to come to Citrus County. But I will tell you, just like most of us, I've spent now most of my adult life, most of my life in Citrus County, although I came from New England. We came here, a lot of us came here because of a connection to somebody. We need your help in bringing connections to Citrus County. We need mentors for our young people.
Do you have like okay, you need them, but do you have like a person, like a liaison person that they can come to or something? When you go to FAMU and Bethune-Cookman, is there a person that when they apply, they have that person on this end in Citrus County that they can come through?
No, great question, Reverend. And yes, the answer is we do. We strategically also send some of our staff members that have connections to those colleges and connections too that we hope will be that. And we do that. It's not just at those schools. We do that across the nation. But can we do better? I think we can. And I will tell you, pastors, work with us. Send us people. We need people to do. And again, we
Get
need
a whole bunch of people.
Well, I'm telling you, give us a list because we do. And we don't just need teachers. We need every type of staff members. We truly are a community, and as the sheriff so appropriately said, we have 20% of our people out of work right now in Citrus County alone. That is monumental because really it was just the beginning of this year we were bragging about how we basically had, we had a 4%, which is basically means everybody's got a job. And in Citrus County now, there's probably nobody that we talk to that we aren't going to have a connection with somebody who has that. So I hope I answered some of your questions.
Okay, Sheriff, maybe you can address it.
Thank you. And great question. We have gone an hour west of Tallahassee on recruiting missions. We recruited a I believe it was a Florida A&M University graduate that was attending the Pat Thomas Training Center up there that came down with one of his friends from the academy and applied, and he's out as a patrol deputy right now working out there. We've gone as far as Seminole County, Lake County, Orange County recruiting, gone up to Columbia County and gone down into Hillsborough and Pasco, Pinellas, and Polk County attempting to recruit folks to come up here. And in fact, we've even attracted some folks from down in Highlands County to come up here and work for us. We have a diverse workforce that's very representative of the breakdown according to the data that's out there in the census that represents us. But the challenge is not recruiting the folks to come work for us as much as it is to ensure that we've got job opportunities for their spouses. Because if we don't have great opportunities for those spouses when you're a two-income family, then it's awful hard for them to make the adjustment, come to a different community, and not be able to get the spouse, the better half, in a great many cases, a good viable job as well.
Okay.
And that challenge is tough. We have a lot of couples that are married that do work for us, either in communications and on the sworn side or on the support staff side. But we could certainly use some help from everybody to be able to provide those opportunities out there. And I know as our economy starts to recover, we get back on the right track and we start moving forward. And it'll happen this year. It'll be slow at first. We'll have to get through some things, but when we do, we'll be leaner, we'll be better. But if we don't have opportunities for dual wage earner couples, it's going to be continue to be a problematic issue for us. But I will also tell you that as the Suncoast Parkway comes deep into our community here, it's going to open up some other opportunities as well to move some of those folks around. All you got to do in the morning is between 5:30, 6:30, 7 o'clock, and you see the flow of vehicles going out of the county. And you know those folks are going off for jobs. They're either going to Ocala, Gainesville. Some folks are driving all the way over to the Orlando market to work. And I know heading down 19 and heading down the Suncoast, going down to those counties down there that have the lure of some opportunities is very attractive to them. So the more we can grow that right here in our home community, the better off we'll be for everybody.
Okay. Diversity training, both of you guys, do we have, I see Major back there, her and I, we work together doing training. We had diversity training. You're constantly teaching the black officers how to deal with the white officers to deal with the blacks, and you're training them how to likes and dislike, different things like that. That's still taking place, diversity.
Very much. And keep in mind, while we're talking about diversity here resulting from a very wrongful tragedy, we deal with diversity of language. We have a lot of students that are English is their second language. One of our big mentors is here tonight as an educator, Mr. Gutierrez, who,
good man.
This is a man who takes of his own time to help other teachers, to provide support to other families, and he supports a board member here by often setting me straight on things and helping us know we need that. But yes, do we do those trainings? We do them in abundance, and we need to continue them.
We do that as well, as you know, as you were part of the fabric of the Sheriff's Office for a number of years. And it's not just diversity training for getting along with the employees that work with us, but we talk about things that are going on culturally around the community.
Right.
Because that we want to do. And would we like to do more to get out into the community? Absolutely. And there's a lot of folks that do that. You might not know it because they're wearing civilian clothes. They're not in a uniform, but they're part of the fabric of every one of our churches across the community. And we've got 150 churches here. And we all have a good representation in a vast number of those churches across the community. Could there be more? Sure. There's always opportunity for more. And we certainly embrace that, and we love that when our folks are out there. And they're not doing it for any other reason, as you well know, Pastor Doug, than for the praise and glory of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, because they so firmly believe in the message that was out there that we have all subscribed to over the course of our lifetime. And some people wear it a little more overtly on their chest than others, and everybody has the right to worship in their own fashion, and we should be respectful of that, and we should honor that, and we should be blessed to know that we do have so many of our law enforcement community. And I see a young man standing, well, he's moved now. He was standing back there, and I've seen him around the community doing a lot of great things that happens to have the last name of Alexander as a great representative of that.
Well, he get beat all the time, Pat. What's another question you guys
Yes,
have?
I wanted to just ask Sheriff, could you just further, there was a question about not just diversity training, but what about personality tests, monitoring social media postings, those sort of things to identify officers who are already on the job, to identify remarks or those sorts of things?
So we do keep an eye on it, but I don't have somebody appointed to monitor every one of the social media feeds for every person that works for us. But if it gives something untoward is posted on social media and it does come to our attention, we do take the appropriate action to deal with it. We don't do personality tests, but everybody does go through a psychological examination before they're hired to work for the sheriff.
Okay. Used to be a county commissioner. Josh, you're familiar with the county. You've heard several things said here tonight. There will be some protesting. As a business, and I know you represent the business community, how I've gotten calls from the business community too, a lot of my friends, a lot of different people, and some people are very scared. They're afraid that this is going to happen, what happened down in Tampa and other places. You know, they want to know if, you know, what we're going to do about this. So what's your concerns?
Well, I think that my chief concern is how that we all as a community are conducting ourselves in the wake of what happened a week ago. I think things changed a week ago. And the good reverend here that's on the panel was praised for real talk. And, you know, it needed to be said. Well, how many times does it have to be said, I guess, is what the question that's looming on our community and other communities across this nation. So I have no fear. Reverend, you've prayed with me before. I don't fear things of the world. But I can tell you that anybody that thinks that their livelihood is threatened, just whether it's COVID or whether it's potential looting or something like that, people get pretty animated about that and pretty amped up about it. I like what the mayor had to say, that people have a right to assemble and protest and speak what's on their mind. And I really don't think that we should approach it from a fear standpoint, but approach it from a welcoming standpoint. I plan to be there Sunday marching with them. And
One, you're going to go to the one in Crystal River, or what about Inverness?
Well, the Crystal River, I like the fact that it's a unity walk. And I think that that's the one that I want to go to. My 17-year-old daughter that just graduated is here tonight because this has affected her deeply. And she never goes anywhere with Dad, but she wanted to come here because it has affected her so much. So I'm disappointed in some of the people that I had a lot of respect for in this community, what they're trafficking on social media. I have to tell you that. This is a time for real talk. Mm-hmm. This is not a time for status quo and just grinning and bearing it anymore. But I will tell you that I think the business community is mature enough to understand, at least the ones that I want to be associated with, that this is a tragedy. We have to work our way through this, and status quo isn't going to get it anymore.
Okay. Thank you, Josh. Anything you want to address? One more.
What is your response to citizens of Citrus, black and white, who are saying this is just people's reaction right now? In a couple of weeks, nobody will be thinking about this.
In other words, what you know how a hurricane come or different things come, it happens, and what happens is a couple of weeks, people just, it's gone. We don't want that. That's not what we want. We want some solid foundation tonight, how we can eliminate these type of attitudes, actions. So we don't want to say in 2 weeks, you know what I'm saying, well, we had a meeting. And no, we want from tonight, after we leave, that's why I said the people that are here, sign up with your email, your name, your information, if you want to get involved. We're going to take this where it needs to go. It should not be one night affair. It should last. And that's what is important. So if one of you guys want to address that, how do you feel? You can't speak yet, and you commissioners can't speak until the end, okay? So Pastor L, one of you guys? I'm sorry. And speak into the mic. They got.
I personally don't think that that is the case. Speaking from the African American community, there's a lot of despair. And when despair sits a long time, it turns destructive. And it's a lot of frustration. I think the chances of this happening again in America, if we don't change, is very strong. And the truth be told is, as an African American, this is a living reality that many African Americans live all the time. The question will be what kind of catalyst that we can form in this county to prevent it from happening in this county. We can't control Minneapolis. We can't control Atlanta. That's not our home. This is our home. And what we do from this day forward and how we come together as a county and as a community will determine if whether or not this will go away or whether or not it will come up again.
Mayor, what do you have to say?
Yes, sir. Well, I put a social media post up last night on some of my mayor pages that I have, and I want to kind of attempt to reiterate what I said and how I feel with regards to how we're going to change and how we're really going to, as a community, change. First of all, obviously, I'm a white guy, all right? And I'm not even going to attempt to act like I can relate to the pain and hardship that black folks have been going through, or going through now and have gone through for generations, as you said. But I can say this, as an American, as a human being, as a Christian, if my brother or my sister is hurting, if they're in pain, if there's an injustice against them, if they're hurt, then I'm hurt. And this community is hurt. And I truly believe this, that there is not a politician that's out there, there's not a political ideology, conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat, there's not an individual that's going to solve this problem, okay? I truly believe, from the bottom of my heart, we need to turn to Jesus.
Hallelujah.
And choose love.
Amen. Amen. Joe, thank you.
It's as
Thank
simple
you.
as that. You know, we all have grace, unmerited grace.
Right.
Okay? And undeserving, you know.
Right.
And so if we can accept that, because we've been given that grace, and then in turn give grace out into a broken world with broken people that have done wrong things, and wrong things have been done against them, and we can attempt to see that, that's when we start becoming equal. That's when we start really focusing on equality and making folks feel that it's real. It's not just lip service. No policy is going to be able to fix what we have.
All right, thank you. Now, Chucky, I'm going to let you come up here real fast, all right? Come over here real fast, okay? But just be respectful and everything, you know, just, all right, be good. Because you're a big cuz here. Okay, here, you can,
Good afternoon, everyone.
come over. They can't see you here. You just got to go over here.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Charles McCray. I'm fifth generation seed of Christopher, Florida, and I'm the overseer and president of Martin Luther King Alliance, Incorporated.
Okay, you tell me what you're considering.
A lot of this stuff, being around for 45 years, I've seen the different dynamics of Citrus County. Back in the 80s, my Uncle Glenn Bunch was almost killed by the Citrus County Sheriff Office. Then 93, we came with my Uncle Jerome Bunch that was killed at ABC. A lot of this stuff starts at home. If we was to teach our children, teach our family members, it's all going to start at home, because what's going on, this person is upset about this person is upset about this, and then we have a group of hate going around here that's taking things from one extreme to another. But if we would just pray and come together, and like Pastor Sutton said, I believe, let's reason together. If we do that, we'll come out on top.
Thank Thank you, Chucky. We're not going to be here long. We just want to wrap up some things before I allow the county commission. This is my thing. I can tell you, as a black man, and been raised up right here in Citrus County, we were all poor. We couldn't get racist at each other or get upset with each other because we all had nothing. There was nothing to give. It was back when the Depression. So none of us had nothing. So we learned how to work together when families come together. And then it was the churches when we learned. Receiving Christ into my life and going in the military was hard. And then you go in the military and the diversity there where they teach you how to work together, how to be a family, how to unify and come together and be brothers and sisters. That was important to me coming from a rural area, Citrus County. Yes, did I see things? And the sheriff, like he said, we from the 82nd Airborne. You've been called everything in the 82nd Airborne. They do whatever it takes to make you a better person. Well, it worked for me. And then becoming a sheriff deputy. Now, I know I work with some incredible guys, and I love them, and they love me today. We still brothers and sisters. There's a lot of people from the sheriff department. It's like a family. One person that goes out and do something wrong cannot label everybody that's working in the uniform. I want to tell you that. I know personally that I was a good cop. And not only that, I know that I was representing the department, and I was representing God, and I was representing black people, being a black man in uniform, to be a good representation. That's important to me. What was done was wrong. We can't change that. But the question is, can we change this area? Can we change? When we stand up and when you see things that's not wrong and that's not right in the community, when you voice and you make your voice heard and you talk and you say something about it, you voice it. If you see something that you don't like with a deputy, go to the sheriff. If you see something they like with the school board, go to the school board. In the city, go to the mayor. I got a relationship with him, great relationship. I got a relationship with the county commissioner. Don't sit silent no more. I'm calling everybody in here. You may be white, you may be red, yellow, blue. I'm calling you to action tonight. Don't leave out of here. Listen, if you want to voice your opinion, voice your opinion. That's what it's all about. You will be heard. That's what happened when one lady that took prayer out of school is because the Christians stayed home. They didn't vote. They didn't care. They didn't show up to the meeting. Thank God you showed up tonight. I'm grateful that you're here and that you're here representing, this cause. You know what this showed me in Citrus County? That as a black man, I can be proud of you, Citrus County, for being here and showing there's more whites in here than there is black. That's a statement to me. It's monumental to me. So I'm saying, we all know what happened was wrong. We can't go back and change that, but we can change and pilot our future. By coming together, uniting. I'm asking you tonight, I've asked Pastor Al that if he would lead. I'm a busy person, and trust me, I am very busy. I love feeding people, helping people, doing what I do. That's what I do, and traveling and doing what I do and preaching. But ask Pastor Al tonight that if he would lead another action group of community leaders to come together, pastors, businessmen, leaders. We have the community. Rotary is here. These guys here, they support, give out scholarships to black kids and black people that's here, that's helping the cause. I'm grateful for you guys and what you have done and allow me to be a part of that. That means something. In a few minutes, you're going to hear from the county commissioners. They can't be in the room at the same time. So one is going to leave. The other one's going to talk, and they're going to address. But before they do that, that's the sunshine law. So I'm going to ask Miss Sheila, if you would come with one more question from the audience.
Yes, I think this might be one. There was a couple questions actually about how could citizens who were interested be engaged in reviewing or be a part of committees that contributed to policing policies or review groups in the community.
Okay, well, that's a, Sheriff, you can address it, and also you guys can address it too, just for a minute.
So one of the things that your sheriff's office has gone through in the past 12 months is a state level reaccreditation and a national level reaccreditation. And we get feedback from citizens all the time. We have a portal where folks can go onto our website and leave feedback about the positive things that they respond to. And we know there's a lot of positive interaction that occurs on a daily basis across the community. And we get those. And occasionally when something doesn't go well and someone's unhappy, we get feedback that way. And that portal's there. Folks are also encouraged to stop by the sheriff's office and meet with myself, meet with Major Vitt, meet with Major Ferrara if they've got concerns or questions about policies and procedures. But the reaccreditation process opened up for the public to comment on things that are going well or things that folks have questions about. And we did get some feedback and comment, and we addressed those issues and concerns and took care of them. And we also talked to our community leaders. We interface with folks in the city of Crystal River and the city of Inverness every day. There's a captain assigned to the city of Inverness, and he has a sergeant that works for him full time. The same thing exists over in the city of Crystal River that addresses specific issues for those two respective municipalities. So there are plenty of touch points out there for the citizens to get together with us and talk to us about issues. There are also for the elected leaders. We interface with the school board on a daily basis. There's a captain assigned to support the ongoing operations of every public school campus in Citrus County. And she has sergeants assigned out there that do the supervisory level work, and she has deputies that are out there doing the work in every one of our public school campuses. We interface with the members of the Board of County Commissioners, and we talk with them quite frequently. Heck, a few months back, when there was a very significant threat to places of worship that happened outside of the state of Florida, and then places in Florida were threatened, we offered up to meet with every religious leader from across the community to talk about their safety concerns and the concerns of their parishioners. So there are plenty of touch points that are out there, and we're always engaging with the citizens from across the community and taking that feedback. And if there's something that needs to be fixed, we fix it.
Okay.
Do we make everybody happy all the time? Well, I would be dishonest if I said we do, because we're not going to make everybody happy all the time. Sometimes a violation of the law is a violation of the law.
Right.
Trafficking in drugs, like what happened over in the city of Crystal River this morning, it's still trafficking in drugs. It's a violation of the community norms and what people find acceptable, especially for those neighbors that were very pleased to see us show up there and execute a search warrant. It's also a violation of our state statutes. So we engage appropriately, and if we're not doing it perfectly, we fix it. And we go on and continue on with the business of the day to protect our community.
Okay. I see your hand jumping up, Pastor, very quickly.
Right. I believe that question was...
Come up to the mic, Pastor.
Right. I think that question was grounded in the fact that when there is a incident involving law enforcement, after a period of time, law enforcement comes back and says everything's okay. The perception is that the fox is telling the farmer that, yeah, everything's okay in the chicken house. And so the question about a civilian review board comes up about a set of independent eyes, unbiased by, let's say, a certain perspective to look at things from that perspective. And again, those are questions. You know, that's not just from a person. What can we do to improve transparency so that when, let's say, someone does, Lord, please don't let it happen.
Have you went to, he said he's got a captain Both places, right? Inverness and Crystal River.
Right. No. I'm not talking about the person,
Right.
I'm talking about having that people know that there is an independence to whatever judgment, whatever statement comes out, that it's not the fox saying that the other fox was
Right.
okay, but that you have, Pastor Alexander is on the Civilian Review Board. You have someone from the Rotary on the Civilian Review Board, and you have this community. It's actually a community coming together and saying that this was right, this was wrong, this is what we could do better. That would probably take out a lot of, frustration with, it's like things never change. I think that was the grounding for the question about the Civilian Review Board.
So Pastor L, would you mind putting that's something that we can put together, we can address that and put that down, and, we can have some people here that would like to be a part of that board and address
Can
that.
I
Yes,
ask-
sir.
When a complaint is made against an officer, and it is made in a formal fashion, what happens with that complaint, and who gets back with the citizen that makes the complaint? Or does anybody get back with the citizen?
When a complaint is made and filed with us, we have an internal affairs detective who investigates the complaint if it rises to the level of an internal affairs investigation. Sometimes it rises to the level of the captain to investigate it. All of those complaints pass through my desk, and I ultimately look them over. And depending on the severity of the complaint, the appropriate person reaches back out to somebody. For example, someone complained because they got a speeding ticket after we had 4 fatalities over on Stagecoach a couple of weeks ago, and they were doing 77 miles an hour on Stagecoach. 2 students from Citrus High Schools died out there. And we've got very proactive about traffic enforcement because there's been a spike in traffic accidents, very serious accidents, as a matter of fact. And that's not something that I'm going to sit down and talk to everybody that gets a speeding ticket, because there are much bigger things to deal with during a pandemic than somebody who was clearly driving carelessly and recklessly on one of our roads. So the appropriate person did address that at that level. But if it's a very serious complaint, I'm the one that's talking to the person. And there's never been issues that have come up to that level. And Pastor Doug knows how to get in touch with me. Virtually anybody in this room can get in touch with me if they've got a complaint about something that they didn't like. They might not get the answer that they want at the end of the day, but if there's something very serious going on, we're going to address it. And we're going to address it very firmly, because we want to meet the expectations of the community. And we want to make sure that if there are some burning questions out there, we can respond to those.
Thank you.
But here's one other thing to remember, too. Everything that we do when it comes to discipline of a law enforcement officer becomes a public record. And because of the sunshine laws, that's open for anybody to inspect. And sometimes people might not be happy with that answer, but that's the answer that they've gotten. And if there's some other issue, then they can come see me and talk to me about it. We'll take care of it.
Okay. Now, so what we're going to do, I'm going to address this, the protests. We know in here, people out there, we know. We got 2 protests marching. He says a unity walk. Josh, you're going to be a part. You guys prepare for that in Inverness, and you don't have a problem with it. Sheriff, are your deputies prepared to take care of those marches, protests?
Pastor Doug, I think we already answered that. Yes, we're prepared to protect the citizens. We're
And
also
Josh, you're
prepared
good.
to protect the protesters who are peacefully
Josh.
protesting.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Joe, you want to say
Yeah.
something before I
Oh, I'm
kick
sorry.
Brian out of the room here?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Pastor. As far as the city of Crystal River, listen, we want to partner. If there's protesters, and I've only been made aware of this through social media outlets with regards to what's happening in Crystal River, that there is an organized effort going on, and that individual was supposed to be here this evening. I'm not sure if they are. If you are, please come see me after.
This
There
is
you
her
go.
right here.
Thank
She's
you
on
very much.
Facebook.
All
I'm
right.
telling you, that's
there
her.
You go.
What's your name, honey? 'Cause okay, that's what I was. Okay. Okay.
Right.
All right.
Well,
Okay.
we want to work with you. Safety is paramount, and that's why we'll get together. So thank
So
you.
you just go see the mayor, okay? Okay. So this is what's going to happen. Sunshine Law, we're kicking the chairman of Board of County Commission out of the room, and we're going to ask Dr. Jeff Kinnard, Commissioner, please come. Hold on. Wait a minute. Hold on. Huh? Jimmy T. Smith is here. Yeah. Jimmy, you here? You got to go. Any other commissioners here? Yeah. Okay, guys, let's make sure that they close the door. Okay, Doc.
Well, first of all, like everybody else has, thank you for holding this tonight, and thank you everybody for coming. Mayor Meek stole my thunder a little bit. I've been thinking about this since you and I had our conversation, and you asked me if I would be here tonight. Of course, anytime you call and ask for something, the answer is going to be yes. Just the wonderful things that you do for our community is truly a blessing. And what I meant by the mayor stealing my thunder a little bit as I was thinking about this, I don't know that there is a man or woman. I don't know that there's a human that is going to solve this problem, that's going to resolve this problem. We are the problem. Original sin is in the very fabric of each and every one of us. We've got to get back to, as Mayor Meek said, we've got to get back to Christ. We've got to get back to prayer. As Reverend Bellamy said, things have got to start at home. We've got to be praying at home. We've got to be praying with our kids at home. We've got to be praying with our spouses at home. We need to pray by ourselves alone, not just for ourselves, not just for our wants and desires, but for our community, praying for our neighbors, praying for our leaders, praying for those in despair. It's going to take Christ to solve this problem, and I believe he's up to the challenge. The Sunshine Law, why we had to run the other two out of here, and I'll get right to the point, and then we can invite them back in. Citrus County has an ongoing problem with a lack of good-paying jobs. As somebody mentioned earlier, we were down around 4% unemployment, which we can cheer about how wonderful that is, but those are jobs. Those are not careers. We've got plenty of jobs to keep people busy, people that want to go to work and bring home a paycheck. Is it a paycheck they can live off of and prosper and provide for their family? Unlikely. What we need are careers. I was instrumental when I was first elected to the county commission. Thankfully, I got my colleagues. My colleagues came along with me on this, and we hired our first ever director of economic development and made him directly accountable to the county administrator. The problem with that is we didn't give him a budget to do anything with it. He still, to this day, has a very minimal budget. Going forward, my plan is that we would give him a set budget, give him money that he can go out and recruit companies to come here, companies that will bring career type of jobs here. That will help settle some of these things. Not the long divisions, racial issues, but that will help get people real jobs, real careers that they can bring money home and provide for their families for. We have problems with health care. We have problems with drugs. We have so many problems that I believe ultimately are rooted in a lack of good paying jobs in our community. And as a county commission, we have to do a better job of that. We've got some county commission candidates in the room here tonight. They need to understand that if the voters choose to keep me, and I'm not turning this political, but if the voters choose to keep me in there for another 4 years, they're going to hear me beating that drum for another 4 years. We've got to do a better job of recruiting businesses that will bring career jobs to our community.
Okay, thank you. Do you guys have something that, like, just like the sheriff department at school, is the county doing anything that bring minorities? Do you have anything that, you know, minority can get some leverage in as far as jobs or careers concerned?
You know, I don't know. That's the truth. And
would you check into that for me?
I will certainly find out.
And if not, you know, let's you know, we can start that, you know.
You got it. I talk to our county administrator on a daily basis, and that's stuff I can find out.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, you bet.
Okay,
Thank you.
Doc, we're kicking you out, brother.
You got it.
Thank y'all.
Thank you,
for
sir.
Dr.
Reverend,
Yes, sir.
while they're changing of the guard, I wanted to answer a question that having to do with policy and engagement and stakeholders. Each of our schools, by statute, has what's called a school advisory council. And it must be by law a diverse council. And it even requires that the administrator of the school appoint to ensure that there is diversity within that council. That council is what advises the school. It is what advises our board often on many policies, decisions. And so those stakeholders are a big part of that process. The other piece that I will tell you, please become engaged with. We think of policy as just part of our manual, but our policy every year is something called the Student Code of Conduct. It's also something that's called the Pupil Progression Plan. Those are our academic policies and our disciplinary policies. They are adopted annually. They are revised annually. Engage yourself in those. We have a very transparent process. We have a state that is a very transparent state. But if you want to know how that's coming up, if you want more information, I'm very easy to contact. Reverend knows how to get a hold of me. I would love to help engage you in that process.
Okay, thank you. Well, Brian, we're going to hear from the chairman of the county commissioners this time. I can tell you that Brian is, he and I have similar backgrounds, military and sheriff department deputies, and he's also getting ready to hopefully retire and do something good after he retired. Not like me, but he's going to. So, Brian.
Okay, is it working?
Yes, sir.
Well, since Doug already introduced myself, I am done, right? So anyway, yeah, let me just, I know a lot of people here, and number one, it's great to see everybody here. I appreciate everybody showing up. Second thing, just a little bit about myself, kind of like Doug. I did 4 years active Navy back in the early 80s. I am presently a Master Chief in the Coast Guard Reserves. I did about 28 years law enforcement, 18 years with the city of Crystal River, so I'm very familiar with Knights Edition, Copeland Park. The last 10 years with the Citrus County Sheriff's Office. And then I ran for county commissioner and been doing that for a little over 3.5 years now. So a couple things. You know, I started watching this tragedy that happened 8 days ago. You know, when you kind of grow up with law enforcement and you see something like that, it's just, to me, it's just devastating. It's devastating for all of law enforcement. And I started thinking about our officers in Citrus County. You know, one, especially Doug, you know, with Doug's sons being a trooper, and Todd Cloud back there, our sheriff, all our deputies here. So this past Saturday, I made a phone call. Usually, actually Sunday. I usually don't call up anybody else on weekends if I can. I know they're usually trying to relax, but I called the sheriff up at, I think, 8 o'clock in the morning on Sunday morning about it, making sure that our citizens were safe and making sure, you know, and I knew he was going to be on top of it, just making sure that his guys were safe. I called Doug up because of what we needed to do in this community, and we had a nice conversation. I think I called him up a couple of minutes after I spoke to the sheriff. And then Doug put this together for tonight, And number one, I appreciate, Doug, everything you do. Number one, for the community, and definitely for being a friend of mine and a friend of everybody in this room. You know, I thank you for your service and everything you do. And everybody's up here in this panel right now. I appreciate everybody showing up and being here. We have a lot of close friendships up here. I've known, you know, most of these people up here for 20 plus years. But I'll tell you, you know, this, like I said, this whole thing is a tragedy. And I know Mayor Meek mentioned before that he could never put himself in a position of being a black person, and you know, and I look at that also and say, hey, I can never put myself in a black person's footsteps. But I'll tell you something, I can always walk next to you. To me, this was a very difficult time for me, because I remember when I first started, I'm a New Yorker, don't hold that against me, but I moved down here in 1989. Started with Crystal River PD in 1990. During that time, I became a field training officer, and Trooper Cloud back there was one of my new guys, and everything he learned from me. So hopefully you all like him. Yeah, it's my fault he's like the way he is, but you know, I'll tell you, one of the things when I was doing my field training and teaching people how to be officers, one thing that to me was the most important thing, and it was treat everybody like you want to be treated, and we all hear that when we're growing up. But the other thing is just have respect for everybody. And I told people, hey, I don't care if they kill somebody, I don't care if they smoking a joint and you arrest them for possession. You treat everybody the same, you treat them with dignity. And the reason why I tell everybody to do that is as a deputy, you never know what you're going to run into. You know, you might be doing a traffic stop and you get in a fight with somebody, and you know, if somebody you treated right was going by, they're going to stop and help you. If you treated them badly, they're just going to go right past you and you're on your own. And kind of the reason why I bring that up, there was an individual over in, I used to live on the north side of, over near Crystal River High School. I won't mention any names, but I've talked to him about before, and Chucky McRae, is he around? It wasn't him. No, it wasn't him. But he knows the story. When we do the Martin Luther King dedications over in Crystal River or Inverness, I've talked about it before, but individual by the name of Dante Lewis. Him and I, about the same age. I think we're 6 months to a year apart. He's a black male, lives over in Crystal River. I've arrested him a number of times, probably 4 or 5 times I've arrested him. Pretty minor stuff. But every single time I arrested him, we always had nice conversations. I always treated him respectfully. He always thanked me after I dropped him off at the jail. Thanks for what you do and everything. But it was important, you know, treating people like that. And you know, he'd get out of jail the next day, and I'd be patrolling around, and I'd see him, and I'd stop and sit there and talk to him the day after he got out of jail. So one day, I think it was actually one night, it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was over near Crystal River High School, and I got a call of a burglary in progress, and I was like 15 seconds away. I pull up to the house, and here's another car driving away, and it's Dante Lewis's car. And in the back of it is 2 giant speakers in the open trunk, which he just stole from the house. And we went up past the high school, made a left on Northeast 13th Terrace, and got my lights on the vehicle, and he stops the car, and he jumps out, and he starts running. And he lives up on that street, so I knew where he was going to be, but I chased him like I chase everybody. And you know, I knew who he was right away, and I'm calling his name. Dante, why are you running? Why are you running? Stop, you know, and he keeps running. And there's a vacant house up there. And he goes through the open door, through the, I guess it was the living room, through the kitchen, and then running out the back door, and I'm probably 8 feet behind him, just about ready to get him. I fall through the floor in the kitchen. It was an old abandoned house, but I fell up to a little above the waist through the floor. And obviously, I make the groaning sound as I hit the side with my stomach, and you know, and within about 10 seconds, Dante comes back into the kitchen, extends his hands out, pulls me out, turns around, puts his hand behind his back, and I take him to jail. I had to, it's my job. And we talked about that before, and those are the situations how we should react to each other. It could have been a lot worse. He could have left me there, and I probably would have tried to fight my way out. He could have came back, and if he wanted to hurt me, he could have very easily done something, But the way I treated him was the way he treated me. Nowadays, that doesn't happen. And obviously, when I saw the video of George and what happened with George, and I looked at that, and I was like, there is no respect there whatsoever. There is no dignity in anything that was going on that day. And especially coming from somebody that spent 28 years in law enforcement, it really, really hurt. That should never happen. And, my feelings is, and Martin Luther King said this, he said, you don't judge a person by the color of their skin, you judge them by their moral character. There's people I don't like in the world, there's people I like in the world, and I don't care whether they're black, white, green, purple, whatever. But those are the decisions we make based on moral characters of individuals. And a lot of these things have, how you treat people. And obviously, this person that murdered George, this officer, he had, I believe, I heard 19 complaints against him, in 19 years. That's a lot. Obviously, there's a breakdown somewhere in his chain sometime over those 19 years where, something should have been a flag to say, hey, this guy's, might have a problem. And that's something that I know the sheriff always looks at. I know his officers look at that all the time, and unfortunately sometimes it gets overlooked. And you hope those aren't the situations, because we got to be aware of the type of officers we have, the type of deputies that we have out there. And sometimes things don't go right. I've arrested people and I've pulled guns off of them, and I'm lucky, and I always knock on wood about my career. I've never shot somebody. I've never hit him with my baton. I've pepper sprayed a lot of people. I've used pressure points on them, and I've wrestled around on the ground with them. But I never used excessive force. I never really had to. I was a pretty big guy, and I always just get them on the ground and lay on top of them, and they weren't moving. So I was pretty lucky with that. But you really got to be, when you look at deputies. And I've dealt with hundreds of them, different agencies all over. And what type of deputy you want out there. And 99.9% of the deputies out here, or police officers out here, or troopers out there are outstanding. They want to do the right thing. And
thank you.
And yep, and they do deserve a lot of credit for what they do. I mean, it is a tough job, and there's, you ask my wife, she hated the days that I was working night shift and always worried about me coming home, as all parents do. I know Doug worries about his son all the time. But you always have bad apples. And we came here to figure out what we can do to prevent some of these things happening. And I know the sheriff has a big task of looking at those things on the law enforcement side, and I'm not going to tell him what to do. He's a smart guy, and will do the right thing. But what we see going on there, and there was an officer, I think, out in California that he was wrestling one of the protesters, and somebody came up behind him and shot him back of the head. He's in critical condition right now. You have another officer on the street, and the car comes by and runs him over. He's in serious condition. These type of things, to me, we're not basing it on color of your skin at that point. You're basing it on the color of a uniform, or a uniform that somebody's wearing. And to me, that should never happen. We have a bad apple and 3 bad apples that were watching it. Those are the 4 individuals that need to pay the price for what happened to George.
Right.
That's it. You don't go around and trash neighborhoods. You don't go around and hurt officers. You don't hurt, the people that are out there that are protecting you. And I've taken that oath a number of times. I went for Chris River. I got hired from the sheriff's office. I've taken that oath. I've taken that oath a lot of times with the military. Every time I re-enlist, I've taken that oath and I live by that oath. And like I said, 99.9% of the officers know what that oath is and follow that oath and do the best they can for the community. I ran for public office because I wanted to continue that. And I think everybody knows that, what kind of job I do. I get out there, if I get a complaint, I take it personally, and I go out and visit, and I talk to people on the phone, and I get out and visit, and I'm always out in town doing things like that. Because I think as a public service person, those are the things we need to do. My office is always open for anybody. Anybody can call me up, send me an email, I respond back. Same as what the sheriff was saying. He's got people in Inverness, Crystal River. You can stop by there and talk to them anytime you want. And I would suggest you do that. You have any issues, contact them. Contact anybody. Contact me. Contact the other commissioners. Contact the sheriff office, their captains or sergeants. Sheriff's not going to answer all the calls because he's a busy man too. Another thing, I'll tell you another little story too, because one of the things, and I think Reverend Hopkins might have brought, no, I don't, maybe not. Somebody brought it up, and actually it was the other Reverend. It's about home life. Parents taking responsible for the kids when they're growing up, and I'll give you a little story on this too that happened. This is back in the probably mid-90s. There was a young boy, I think he was probably 15 or 16 at the time, named Christopher Wilson. He used to fish in the pond at Night's Edition all the time. I'd see him out there day after day fishing, trying to get some bass. And I'd always get out there and talk to him. And he just, every time he was fishing, he had a big smile on his face. So I had a pretty good-sized boat back then, about 25-footer, and I used to go out grouper fishing all the time, and I invited him. I went up to him and talked to him. I said, hey, how about you want to go out fishing sometime and on a boat and catch some really big fish? And he just beaming ear to ear. I went over and talked to his mother, and Mom gave me permission, and we arranged it to go out on a Saturday fishing, and I picked him up at his house and spent all day out fishing and brought him back home. And back then, he was a good kid. All he wanted to do was fish. So anyway, I dropped him back off at home, and I'll tell you, within like a day or two, peer pressure from the kids in the neighborhood. Hey, why are you out with the cops? Why are you out with the white guy? This all came from dealers on the streets, right at Night's Edition. I could barely get away from him within the first week. I'd drive by and he wouldn't wave because of his friends were watching him. To me, it goes, it comes full circle around. To me, there's no black, there's no white. It's doing what's right and not doing what's wrong. I kind of learned the hard way back then of trying to do something nice for somebody that was really having a good time. And because of, kids in the neighborhood wouldn't let him enjoy it. And after that, I think I ended up arresting him, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 times for dealing drugs. Those type of things to me is what's tragic in the world right now, because there should be no difference between a police officer, a black male, a white male. There is no difference. It's how we treat each other, and those are the things that we really have to work on in the community. And we talked about fellowship, coming out to a place like this and getting together. And to me, that's what's going to change things. There's things, and I agree. There's things that and it's hard for the sheriff to be at every time an incident happens, because sometimes you don't necessarily see what's out there and you don't have all the information. I mean, we're very lucky to an extent that the killing of George Floyd was videotaped in its entirety. Because honestly, if you didn't have that, there'd be a lot of questions. And when I looked at that, I mean, to me, it was night and day. He was killed.
Yep.
And the problem, and I think we all know that the violence out there, the setting the fires, the throwing the Molotov cocktails in patrol cars, the shooting of police officers and that thing is overshadowing the real issue that we're facing. We talk about these two marches that are happening this week here in Citrus County. I was going to ask the sheriff this earlier, actually I think probably the other day when I talked to him, that I still have a uniform at home, and if he was having any trouble out there with people, hey, I'd be more than happy to throw it on for the day and come out there and help out. Because the worst thing we can do in our community is pull apart at the seams by having things like that happen in our community. There's problems, and Reverend Hopkins said it. I mean, there's things that I'm sure happen. And like I said, I can't put my feet in his shoes to know what a black man on the street is feeling. The other individual, I forget his name, that was jogging down the road, and those two, thank you. Yep, Arbery. What's going through his mind is, hey, I'm out for a run. And that happens. I mean, if I was running the same street at the same time, nothing would have happened to me. Those things we got to work on, obviously. So my final words right now, I get a little teary-eyed when I start talking about some of these issues, because really I feel them in my heart, and they're emotional. And I'll tell you, I love this community. I worked 28 years in law enforcement here in this community because I loved it. I love being around people. I love helping people, as most law enforcement does. But we got to look at what happened and fix what happened, and those are difficult things to happen. What happened with George, because it is a certain individual that did that, and you can't go, okay, well, he did it, well, you're going to do it, or Trooper Cloud's going to do it, or this trooper's going to do it, or this officer's going to do it. Those are very difficult, and unfortunately, we're probably going to have other incidences like that. But anytime you have an incident happen, you do things what they call mitigation. You try to do things, and that's what we're doing today, is you try to look at some things that might help prevent some of these things. And, same thing like with Sheriff's Office when they do psychological evaluations. Those are to try to weed out the bad guys, try to weed out people that don't have the capabilities of doing that job. So there's mitigations that are put in place. Training, human diversity classes and stuff like that. I do them every year. I actually have to do them twice because I do it with the Sheriff's Office. I still do my annual training. I just did my 80 hours, but I do it with the Coast Guard also. You do that to try to just refresh your memory and keep on it, because it's a thing we have to battle all the time, and everybody needs to battle that all the time. It's going to be a long road trying to get it right. But one thing I'll tell you, the group that we have here, the citizens we have in this county, we can move forward. And we have a great county. I really think we do. And granted, there is problems sometimes. Sometimes things don't go right. But I'm here because I want to work on it. Everybody up here wants to get it right, because we don't want a tragedy like what happened to George Floyd happen here. So that's it. Thank you again for everybody being here. I appreciate it.
Okay. We're getting ready to close them. Pastor Lucas, you're still here. You're going to be praying for us, so you come up here, brother. Okay. And Doug, I know you here represent Rotary. You guys address something, but right before we leave, okay? I know now, they got Doug, the Doug Salt and Pepper. That's what they call us, okay?
Yeah, I had just one question. Is this working?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay. I had one question because I was listening outside. They wouldn't let me in because I got here too late. But I've listened to everything, and the one thing that concerns me is the people in this room and the people that we think will gather in Inverness and Crystal River are not going to be the problem. The problem are those people coming up that corridor from down there in Tampa.
Yeah.
And we need to know, we as citizens, we pretty well know each other. If we see somebody strange in that crowd, we need to question it, because their intent, and it's unfortunate, I've watched the things in Atlanta and other things, young people that weren't going to engage in some of the stuff that happened. Once the bad guys started breaking windows, they just were kind of pulled into that, let me get a Gucci purse. They're going to get it anyway. And so how do we identify those people coming in from Tampa or otherwhere and keep them out of our groups from causing those problems? That's my main concern. Also, Rotary Club of Inverness has asked the pastor to be their speaker next week and to talk about what we're talking about tonight and to try to marshal the forces of the Rotarians who are business people in the community. There's about 300 of them. To join forces to do anything we can do to help the community be a better place to live, because that's what Rotary is all about.
Thank you, Doug. Listen, would you guys tonight, thank you for coming here tonight. It's been a blessing. It's been an absolute blessing. I want to ask that Pastor Al, Bishop Al, tonight that you, yes, I told him earlier that I challenge him and also some of the other black leaders in the community come together. And then if you would tonight take your information and put it in there. We need you to. Your voice is heard, and we really need you to. It's not a white thing. It's not a black thing. It's a kingdom. It's a God thing, and we got to understand that. I want you to, Doc, I'm glad you're back. We're going to do this scripture up here. I asked Tom to do this. Before we close, I just want us to read this scripture. I believe this. I truly believe this scripture. If you don't mind, this is a scripture that came from the written Bible. Let's read that together. Would you? If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sin and heal their land. I believe that if we would do our part, God has already have done his part. Pastors, if you're here tonight, would you please stand social distance up here? Come on, pastors. Stand up here. All the pastors, just up here. Just stand. Just make your distance. Keep your distance. Pastor Lucas, you're going to come there. You're going to be praying for us tonight, the unity. Please stretch right across. Listen, we also have a big enemy, and that's COVID-19. We've been praying and praying that we will find the answer, and we come against it. We come against this pandemic, and that we are praying for the whole world. So, Pastor Lucas, pray for this community, and pray against this COVID-19.
Let's agree together. Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight. You have heard our hearts. You've heard the words, the conversations, and you see the deep recesses of our heart. And there's something within us tonight as we've gathered here that says we want change. And we agree together that that change begins with your divine hand touching our hearts, touching our lives, giving us strength where there's weakness, giving us peace and unity where there's division and strife, giving us courage where there has been cowardice. And tonight, we pray that we would not leave this place the same we came in, and that we would actually take action. We thank you for your protection on us through this COVID-19. We thank you for bringing us through it and causing us to come through this stronger than ever before. We join together, God, and our heart's desire is that you would help us to treat others the way we would want to be treated. And help us, Lord, to love you more and to love others more. In Jesus' name,
can we
amen.
Say the Lord's Prayer before we stop? Listen, if you're viewing us, thank you for joining us by Facebook, YouTube, whatever way you are viewing us. Thank you for this today. We're praying. We're praying. We're praying for you and your families. Thank you for joining us. Remember, peaceful marches. That's what it's all about. We're going to pray. And we're going to ask you to join us in the Lord's Prayer. First, I want to thank everybody that showed up tonight. Our panel, thank these gentlemen and ladies that came out tonight. It's been a blessing. Citrus County, united. Let's pray the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. George, rest in peace. God bless you. Thank you for viewing it. Have a blessed evening. Thank you for coming. God bless you. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, baby.